Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Welcome to the Jungle. And dun 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 dun, we have breaking news. Tim Daniel, it's so good to see you. But we have breaking news: the Bengals have signed to a 1-year contract. Tight end Cam Grandy.
Oh no, Cam Grandy's back. 85 is in the building still.
Yes, that's the big news this week. We've got him.
Confused with Tyler Eifert.
Yes. So yes, that is the big official news. Now we do have other news as well. Great to talk to you again, Tim. I guess let's just go through the news a little bit real here. Offensive line coach Scott Peters has been brought in to take that role. He had the same role with the New England Patriots last year, but he was with the Browns under Bill Callahan from 2020 to 23. So they are living on that experience, I believe, in this hire because, frankly, the New England numbers aren't great.
Nope, they're not.
But Scott Peters will come into the building with some familiarity, at least with folks in and around the current staff, and they will bring him in. I guess we don't know. I mean, we don't have any experience with Scott Peters.
Yeah.
I think a new voice was needed anyway, as we talked about with Lou Anarumo, who just got hired as the Colts defensive coordinator, so he wasn't unemployed for very long. But what are your thoughts? I guess new voice, new maybe philosophy. Good to have for the offensive line.
It had to happen, obviously, and we talked about that when these coaching transactions started happening with moving on from Frank Pollock and just not being able to protect Joe enough. And I know Joe, being Joe, will kind of say like, "Look, sometimes I held onto the ball too long," which he's not wrong. But you still got to keep your quarterback up, and so Frank and his crew weren't able to do that very well. I think there's 1 year in the Joe Burrow era where the Bengals finished in the top half of the league as far as offensive line production. And when Joe being as good as he is, especially the year he just had. So the game plan is simple: protect 9, get guys who can do it, and have someone who can coach them to do it. So, I'm lucky, and I know we're gonna get to the Al Golden thing here in a little bit, but I had all those years with Notre Dame of having Harry Hiestand, and they had the best offensive line for a very long time. So if they can get a guy like that here, I'm very happy. So.
Well, and certainly the idea was they signed new players to that line after the Super Bowl run, and maybe probably 22 was the year you're referencing, I'm assuming, as far as the success that they had. But the problem comes when you've got arguably better players, but the production starts suffering even then. So,
right.
And we know there's been injuries, and we know they've cut corners maybe on a few things. And let's face it, Cordell Volson at left guard was acceptable until he wasn't. As a player, and even at right guard as well. I would say the two guard positions, because even though Ted Karras is not going to be able to do it forever, I think he still played at a high enough level this year that he's probably going to be fine. But to think about Kappa and Volson at the two guard spots, those need improved with personnel. But at the same time, the philosophy, the way the message is getting across, and maybe even development as well needs to improve.
Yeah, I think you can make the case. Take care. You can kind of probably rely on for another couple of years. I don't have this contract in front of me to tell you exactly what that is, but we talked about this a couple weeks ago, Seth. The tackles you feel really good about. Orlando Brown and Amarius Mims for the future. Those are two guys that you feel like can kind of be mainstays, and you can definitely tell. I mean, Mims was willing to go out there and play with a broken hand until he couldn't anymore, and you love that football grit guy, obviously. And Orlando Brown has been
on a broken leg.
Yeah, on a broken leg, and went out there and like tough through it. I thought really last year was really good when he was healthy. Even the game against Denver with a broken leg, I thought he was really good. So I really like this team as far as that situation. I like this move to see what a new face is going to be. And yeah, I'm all for new guards. I think all of us are for new guards. So hopefully we can get some guys in here to help us out there as well.
Well, and honestly, Cody Ford, did an admirable job at left tackle when he had to, and even right tackle. But if he had to be your left guard, that would not be the worst thing in the world. So he's earned the respect, I believe, of the organization, the ability to maybe have that. So we get that. We get the news also that we thought maybe Mike McCarthy might be heading to Pittsburgh, but he's actually – oh, wait, wrong Mike McCarthy. Michael McCarthy is the assistant offensive line coach. He comes with Scott Peters from New England. So even less known about him. But at the same time, those are moves that have been made. And along with Cam Grandy, as I mentioned.
Legend.
So you think about this week that has transpired. We got off the air last week, and I felt bad because I thought the first week when we knew that the defensive coordinator spot was open, we did mention Al Golden. And this past week we didn't because we were talking about just two names and we were just bantying back possibilities. And we just didn't bring up Al Golden's name because, frankly, that wasn't what the conversation was about. But when we got off the air, I kind of thought, oh, we should have, because I think that's who it's going to be. And certainly they waited until the Notre Dame run was over, and Notre Dame made it to the national championship game held on January 20th, the latest it's ever been held. And now he has coached, 22 through 24. He coached 3 seasons as Notre Dame's defensive coordinator. And now here we are. So I know you're the bigger fan. We will maybe get to last night's game here in a moment. But if you would talk a little bit about what you know about Al Golden as far as what you're hearing.
So everything I've listened to, whether it's James Rapine, whether it's the Bengals end of media members or the Notre Dame media members, who are all in agreement that this is going to happen. Everything but the contract's been signed, it sounds like. So it's weird for me because I didn't want him to leave Notre Dame. But if he was going to leave Notre Dame for anyone, it's obviously great here. And I don't think Notre Dame's going to have too much of a fall off a defensive coordinator with what he started there with Marcus Freeman. I think they're going to be just fine with the guys they have coming back. But I think it's going to be a really nice fit. The way he, you saw it last night, obviously in the Ohio State championship game. He is pretty reliant on man coverage, putting his corners out there on an island, which can sometimes be a gift or a curse. But if he has good safeties, has an ability to kind of really disguise them, use them as a robber, kind of bring them in that single high rollover. They play a lot of shell defense at Notre Dame. And so it's a lot of just kind of keeping the play in front of them. And so there's that. And obviously, the Bengals side of things is he's been here, right? He's been a part of Zach Taylor's staff before. So the familiarity probably also gets it there. It's just too good of an opportunity for him, I think, to pass up. And he's a guy who's been around a long time. He's been a head coach before. So he's done a whole lot of different roles in a football coaching level. So I think it's a good hire. I think he'll do well. And, if he can get some of those guys on defense we saw last night to come to Cincinnati, like Xavier Watts and Jack Sawyer and so forth, I will be very okay with it.
Well, also remember he was on the Bengals staff when he went to Notre Dame from Cincinnati. Yeah. Like guys like James Rapine might even have a bit of a line to him. A little bit of trivia. Did you know the last time before the Indiana game in the college football playoff that a home Notre Dame game was televised on anything other than NBC was when Al Golden's Penn State Nittany Lions played there, and it was not on NBC years and years and years ago. Of course, he was a tight end, so he was not even a defensive player. I remember him wearing the shirt and tie down in the 90-degree heat in Miami when he was my head coach. And
then Tulane, was it Tulane?
He was at Temple, I believe.
Temple, that's
he was Temple's head coach.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, I think it's an upgrade, obviously. But we go back to that whole it's a new voice in a room thing. Now, if he is going to play almost all man-to-man, he's going to have to get Cam Taylor-Britt's confidence restored, and some things are going to have to be figured out there. But he's done a good enough job, and he's been in the NFL, so he has that experience. So I guess I've been on board with that pretty much from the start. I told you last week Jim Leonard would have been my maybe – not dark horse pick, but kind of a guy. When I heard his name, my ears perked up. But I always thought Golden might have been the guy. So he is likely to be named, I would assume, sometime this week.
Yeah,
and then they'll get down to the Senior Bowl and places like that and get some scouting in and go from there.
Yeah. I'm excited to see it, man. Like I said, I hate to see him leave Notre Dame, but if he was going to leave for anyone, I'm really glad it's my NFL team. So
when it's good that it works out that way, because I even remember, like, obviously we saw Urban Meyer, what a train wreck he was with the Jaguars, and it always happens. If you're an Ohio State fan, going back to maybe Cooper, not much, but some, but Jim Tressel especially, and then Urban Meyer, and then now Ryan Day. It's like, well, he'll probably go to the NFL. And then every year you'd have to hear, and even one year Jim Tressel was supposedly going to interview with the Browns or something. I don't remember, but it was always like, I don't even know if I was like, I don't even know if Urban Meyer's system really works in the NFL. And of course, the way he deals with people didn't work in the NFL, and he was not even there a full season. So
yeah, I was very happy that I was very, very pleased that obviously that Ben Johnson was announced to be the coach of the Bears and not Marcus Freeman. So
yeah, and the funny thing was they interviewed Eddie George.
Yeah, I saw that.
He's Tennessee State's coach, and I have no ill will at all if that were to happen. But I worry. I don't like the Bears organization. I
No,
don't think
who does?
well. I don't think it's run well, and so I think I would feel bad. I think for a guy like Eddie George if that was his shot and he took it and then it didn't go well, because what are you going to do? I mean,
yeah,
it's actually almost like when Marvin grabbed the Bengals and went 500 in the first year. I remember early PTI, Tony Kornheiser and what Mike Wilbon saying, if he goes 500 there, they'll name a street after him. Because the Bengals have been so bad. And so it was almost like he can't lose type situation, but it's a tougher hill to climb when you're talking about a really mismanaged organization. So
yeah, for sure. I mean, Detroit went through that for a really long time before Dan Campbell came in there, and I know they just lost in the divisional round. Which, by the way, holy moly, Jaden Daniels rules. He's so fun.
He's very, very good. I'm not. It's not like I'm withholding judgment. Very good, but I will say this: C.J. Stroud lost his offense coordinator after 1 year, and his offensive line is terrible. And he took a step back in most people's minds this year. But it wasn't that long ago people were talking about C.J. the same way because they won.
I agree
as well. And I even think about, obviously you go back to RG3.
Yeah.
And the I believe the phrase in Washington D.C. back in 2012 it was an era of unbridled optimism, and he only started I think 14 or 15 games that year, and then he got hurt and played in the playoffs on a bad leg and had the ACL surgery, and it was over. There was no optimism, let alone unbridled. So
I'll never forget Justin Tuck in a press conference after a Giants-Redskins game going, I'm really mad at the football gods for putting that guy in our division. We're going to play him twice a year for about 10 years.
Yeah, you wish you could play him now. So, no, so we'll see. I mean, Jaden Daniels obviously looks like the real deal, and obviously if he can muster up a win over the Eagles, he's in the Super Bowl. So it'd be kind of uncharted territories at then. All right, we're going to close things out. And actually, I had a comment from someone this week who said, I listened to your show. He says, I know it's a Bengals show, but I really enjoyed when you talked about the college game. And so at least there's that. I'm sure there's a bunch of Bengals fans that maybe tune into this show that kind of roll their eyes. But listen, folks, there's just not much going on.
There's nothing to talk about.
So it's 12:55 into this show now. If you don't want to hear anything about the college football playoff, you can, I guess, turn it off and wait till next week, or wait until we do an emergency pod with some news. But about last night, we did a little bit, I thought, and I was told it was kind of cool, where we kind of talked from our own fans' perspective. This is not us trying to be journalists or whatever. We are lifelong fans of our teams.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to get a safe place here where we can talk about our emotions as the game went along. And you are a Notre Dame fan, and I would like to hear what you were thinking as that game. Let's kind of just go your mindset throughout the night. Like if this was your timeline, maybe give me the bullet points.
Sure. So obviously the first possession was like, well, Riley Leonard just became a Notre Dame legend. No matter what happens the rest of the game, he's a Notre Dame legend. And all the respect in the world for everything, that probably hurt them more than it helped them get to the game. But
he was so beat up then.
Yeah, but I mean, it was obviously impressive as hell to see what he was putting himself through. That dude's tough as nails. And then, the Jeremiah Smith touchdown where Christian Gray points him out and doesn't stick with him. You're like, what? Why didn't you just stick with him?
Yes.
Like if you're gonna lose, if you're gonna let someone else get beat. I saw McShay and Mensch talked about this today, and I totally agree with that. It's like, look, he's like, if you're gonna let someone else get beat, don't get beat because you didn't cover Jeremiah Smith. And they also pointed out, I'm sure you know this. Alabama ran that same play.
I was going to tell you. Yes. 2020, Devontae Smith ran it against Ohio State in the title game.
Yeah. And so I thought that was kind of funny. So, Ohio State kind of takes over, and it's like what you're kind of worried about. Where you're like, man, like, is Notre Dame going to be able to hang in? And then Jaden Greathouse becomes Golden Tate, apparently, like with two incredible plays. I thought the breakaway touchdown was great, but God, that Riley Leonard threw the best ball of his life on that one. That was into the end zone that he caught, and there you're like, oh my God, they have a shot. And that's all I could ask for, realistically, man. Like, I think a lot of people might agree that maybe Notre Dame is a year ahead than where they're supposed to be right now. I'm one of them. and I'm happy. I'm very happy. I'm disappointed they lost, but I'm not like big picture. Like I'm not sitting here holding my head down. I'm not heartbroken. I'm not thinking back to if this or this or this happens. I'm just like, look, dude, like 14-2, the first 12-team CFP, the two schools who were there should have been there. At the end of the day, we're going to number 2 in the AP poll. And this is just the beginning. Even if they lose Al Golden, which it looks like they're going to lose Al Golden, I feel really good about Notre Dame for the future. I feel really good about Marcus Fuhrman being in charge. We talked about this last week with how NIL's playing out. Teams like Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, you're going to see kind of that balance come a little more now. And I think that for now, I mean, there's things I question, why'd you kick a field goal when you're down 2 scores? What good does it do you? Why does Jeremiah Love only get 5 touches? Why did Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price only combine for 7 carries? But big picture, I'm not going to sit here and pound my fist and be mad about it. Unbelievable year. The right team won last night, and I think Notre Dame's going to win one in the next couple of years.
So the right team winning of the top 8, and Ohio State can't beat itself, except for they kind of did against Michigan. Of the top 8, of which Ohio State's one of them. So of the 7 teams that are in the top 8 that aren't Ohio State, they beat 6 of those teams.
Right.
Ohio State did. And the only one they didn't was Georgia. They didn't play Georgia, but Notre Dame did beat Georgia. So there's that. And so stream of consciousness throughout the timeline for me, obviously I'm not that panicked when Notre Dame does what they did. I kind of wanted Ohio State to take the ball, though. They won the coin toss.
Yeah.
And as it turned out, though,
I did too.
It worked out perfect for Ohio State because they talked a lot this year, that middle 8, last 4 minutes, first 4 minutes, last 4 minutes, second quarter, first 4 minutes, third quarter. Ohio State scores, doesn't give up anything on the very short time that they gave the ball back to Notre Dame. Then they get the ball first, come down and score. They won that middle 8, and that technically was the difference. But so I wasn't that concerned about the long drive. I didn't like how long it took off the clock, all that. But they went right back down and scored. And so here we're even again. And now if we can get a stop, we're fine. And I just honestly, I loved pretty much everything about the first half.
Yeah.
Jim Knowles is the defensive coordinator of the Ohio State. And it's kind of like Lou was there in 21-22. Like Jim Knowles might give up something early. And that something happened to be Riley Leonard running for every first down possible, except for the fact that maybe if the thing that they did negatively was allow it to be 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2 so many times.
Right.
That's kind of what you need to do.
They struggle with that all year. Yeah.
Keep it at 3rd and 5 or longer if you're Ohio State's defense at that point, which is what they did on the next drive because there was a penalty and there was and by the way, the first time since September 21st, another team's offense was called for a hold against Ohio State.
Is that so?
That's absolutely
okay.
So.
That makes sense now because I was looking at Blue Sky.
Wild when they called the hold against Notre Dame, and Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau. Like if you watch them, even there was a play later where the right tackle had JTT both sides of his jersey and pulled him in, and it was I think he still got the Leonard, and then there was no flag thrown, and that was when I think JT might have hurt his ankle again. But anyway. So you've got all that and everything. The first half was great. After the first drive, like Notre Dame didn't get a first down again until like late third quarter. So, everything was both sides of the ball. The excitement, I know they kind of obviously stole that play, but nobody saw it coming. My 14-year-old son goes.
Christian Gray did, but he didn't do anything about it.
Well, my 14-year-old son goes, this is a weird formation. And then Jeremiah Smith starts toward the backfield with a right tackle just standing they almost rubbed shoulders. It was almost like the right tackle was going to set a screen for him in basketball. But then he reverse pivots and goes the other way, and there's no Notre Dame defender whatsoever. That was fun to watch for me. So no notes. I was extremely pleased. Even when they scored on that long drive to start the game, I said, man, if Riley Leonard tries to do this the whole night, he's not going to make it through the game.
Yeah, I mean,
he did. He landed on the ball, knocked it out himself, and they said he puked when he got off the sideline, and you could read his lips. I landed on the ball. Yeah. So anyway, so the first half's great, and as I thought about it originally, I was like, well, after the first drive of the second half, Ohio State kind of sat on the ball, and in reality, though, if you watch the first drive, the play that sprung it was a long run. It wasn't as if it was some imaginative Jeremiah Smith gadget play. And you don't have to have all gadget plays. In fact, when they tried a gadget play, I said, don't do that. Everything else is working right now.
Yeah.
Why are you trying something silly? But anyway, so they scored a touchdown, and I thought, this is great. One more touchdown, I should say, and I think we can put it away. But then Marcus Freeman decides to go for the fake punt. They don't get it. It got snuffed out a little bit, although a perfect throw, and maybe it's a different story, and it's a conversion. But you get the ball on like the 34-ish yard line, and you basically decide right then, if you watch the game, Ohio State decides to start using clock. And it's only the second drive of the third quarter for you. And I'm like, what are you doing? You were just gifted this field position. And again, they won the title. It's fine. But as the time's going on, that's what I'm thinking. And they kick a field goal, which was not a foregone conclusion because Ohio State's field goal kicking, even going back to the Georgia game, has been rather suspect in 22. So, but they only get the field goal. And then if you watch that half, the second half, the whole time but think about the first drive, the touchdown of the third quarter, the touchdown was sprung by a long run up the middle.
Yeah.
It wasn't even, like I said, that's what gets me. Like, no, they were running clock from the start of the second half. And that was like, oh no, what are you doing? And so even the Ibuka run was a jet sweep that may have yielded 4 yards, may have yielded 7. Notre Dame may have tackled, but he gets 20 some yards and then he fumbles. And that kind of helps spark you. Yeah. So I was bothered more by, and I'm not saying you have to go crazy and score 62 points or something, but man, just one more touchdown when it's 28-7, and it might have been over. And as it was technically over, but it wasn't without its suspense. So just awesome. The only other thing I'll say, and I'll let you say some more if you want, but I still maintain this. I can be very upset as I'm freezing my toes off on November 30th against Michigan by the game plan and by the refusal to switch the game plan when it wasn't working and the loss to a 5-loss Michigan team. I'm allowed to be upset about that. I'm allowed to think maybe you've lost 4 times to your rival and maybe it's time to go. I'm allowed to worry that the Tennessee game may turn out different because who knows what team's going to show up.
Yeah.
But I'm also allowed now to be so happy. All right.
For sure.
And so I don't have to say I was wrong on November 30th to be right now. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of like Cardell Jones was one of them even 2 weeks ago, but the whole you owe Ryan Day an apology stuff. I'm like, no, I don't think I do. I think you've told me, even Ryan Day himself in the last year has told me that there's 3 goals and one of them's win Michigan game, one of them's win the Big Ten, and the other is to win the national title. And you failed on 2 of those goals every year, and you failed on the last one until now. So I'm so happy. Certainly, my 14-year-old's old enough to really know what's happening. 10 years ago, he wasn't.
Yeah.
And he's a diehard, and I loved experiencing it with him. So.
Yeah, I hope I get to do it too, man. I think I will. I think I will. It just wasn't this year.
Yeah, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, there's going to be movement. There's going to be different things, and there's going to be a question as Ohio State probably turns to Julian Sayin at quarterback. You've got 2 quarterbacks that are possible, but I'm assuming Carr will be the guy next year.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
There's been some rumblings of a certain player I don't want that's pretty popular in the college football quarterback field between if he's deciding if he wants to go back to school and enter the portal. And I would much rather lose with CJ Carr or Steve Angeli than win with Quinn Ewers. So
he declared to the NFL. I guess it doesn't have to be official, but
yeah,
he did declare to the NFL. Yeah, so there'll be a lot put on them. Ohio State will still have what I think will be the best defensive player and the best offensive player in the country next year.
Yep,
with Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith. So you have a lot to build around there. So
yeah, I'm genuinely curious if Ben Morrison's going to go to the draft since he missed half the year.
Yeah,
I do think he's probably the second or third best corner, depending how you rate Travis Hunter in this draft class behind Will Johnson. So I would love if he came back for another year. But if he doesn't, and Al Golden wants to keep his man-to-man defense going, and he can draft Ben Morrison, let's do it.
Okay. Yeah, it'll be interesting. And a lot of people are saying this is the last time, like a quote-unquote super team, as far as the amount of talent that is assembled. Ohio State has it now. Alabama had it in 2020. LSU had it in 2019. Georgia had it in bits and pieces in 21 and 22, but one year the defense was superhuman. The next year the offense was. So I'm not sure. I can't, if you put both years together, yeah, I agree. But it'll be interesting. NIL is going to be big. Revenue sharing amongst athletes, if they enforce the Title IX aspect, that's going to be interesting. The NIL for like a Jeremiah Smith, where he could get millions of dollars from Nike or whomever, and that doesn't have to be split with female athletes. But anything that the school gives a male athlete will have to be also given to female athletes.
Yeah, so, and on the other end, Jeremiah Love. I mean, he's probably going to be selling cars in South Bend pretty soon. So,
well, yeah,
not in like an insulting way of like you went broke, no. But like he's going to be in a lot of commercials.
Yeah. So I'm happy that Ohio State is in the middle of the 13th largest city in the country. Mm-hmm. It's probably, I mean, Georgia Tech's a Power 4 school, but they're not a behemoth. But if you think of Austin and Columbus, I think those are probably the two biggest cities that have major powers in college football. And LA, I understand, but they like everything. They have so many other things to worry about in LA than we do here in Columbus.
They're really loving Lincoln Riley right now, aren't they? They're really excited about him over there.
That's right. So anyway, it's going to be an interesting off season, but last night was fun and see the run through the playoffs again. Like those who tell me, especially like a Holly Rowe or some national reporter who can't understand why the Michigan game is such a big deal to fans. This is the second time ever that there was an opportunity for an Ohio State team to win a national championship after losing to Michigan. And the other time came in 2022 when we had to play Georgia in the semifinal.
Yeah.
So basically my entire life and everybody on Earth's entire life has been spent, if you lose to Michigan, you don't have a chance. And this year, because of an expanded playoff, the chance was still there and they grabbed a hold of it. And we'll always remember it. There's going to be a lot of big time plays that we'll always remember fondly. So awesome stuff. I hope the Bengals can take us on a similar ride that they did a few years ago, and that these college football playoff runs feel like more and more like the NFL playoffs. And hopefully the Bengals will do that for us again soon.
I hope so, man. It's going to be a fun off season there as well. So maybe at some point we'll be able to talk about like Bengals news again. I don't know. I hope so.
Yeah, and certainly, like we said, we'll stay up to date. At minimum, we should probably have a short if Al Golden is named the coach, but if not, we will have a show again next week. And if he's named by then, we'll have plenty to say about it.
Yeah, man. Let's go with it.
All right. Hoo day, and let's have a great week, everyone.
See y'all.